Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A warrant for the arrest of a Vancouver Island father accused of taking his little girl. And
we're flying blind. So people that have symptoms cannot be tested.
The demand for rapid tests in BC and why experts say they're still needed. Also,
I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one.
a BC teen's dream come true, how he snagged a golden ticket to Hollywood.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Police have now issued an arrest warrant for a father accused of abducting his daughter on Vancouver Island. Dan Burrett is here live with more details on this. Dan, police first told us about this case more than 2 months ago.
That's right, Anita. And Mounties say they now have enough evidence to recommend a criminal charge. Take a look at this photo. 36-year-old Jesse Bennett is accused of kidnapping his daughter, 7-year-old Violet. They've been missing since late January from the North Cowichan-Duncan area. Police say the pair vanished just after a judge ordered Bennett to return Violet to her mother under a joint custody arrangement. Now the courts have issued a warrant for his arrest. They admit the pair could be anywhere in Canada at this point. Violet Bennett is said to be white, 7 years old, about 4 feet tall, with blue eyes and big, natural, curly hair. Her father, Jesse Bennett, is also described as white, about 5'10", 160 pounds, with blue eyes, brown hair, and a beard. Police say he may be wearing a hat or have shaved his head at this point. If you've seen either Jesse Bennett or his daughter Violet, you're asked to contact your local police, and you can see their photos and read more on our website, cbc.ca/BC.
Dan Burrett live tonight. Thank you. An investigation is underway into a young northern Pacific fin whale found dead last week near Pender Harbor on the Sunshine Coast. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans says the male, measuring 42 feet long, was under 2 years old. The Sechelt First Nation organized a ceremony along with the DFO to recognize the cultural importance of the death of the young male and the importance of collecting scientific information about the species and the cause of death.
We don't get a lot of opportunities for a fresh carcass to do a necropsy to look at cause of death. So this was a real high priority. Not sure how the animal ended up there, but we did take lots of samples and there was evidence of some blunt force trauma on the animal. So that was concerning.
The DFO says necropsy and tissue analysis results are expected over the next month. A report will follow. Northern Pacific fin whales are a threatened species and are rarely found in southern BC's inside waters. Well, Vancouver police say a suspect has been arrested and charged after allegedly vandalizing a Komagata Maru memorial in the city last August. Police say Unifor Kernaiwan was found in the city's downtown east side on Monday and taken into custody on mischief charges that were issued in January. He's accused of defacing the memorial in Cole Harbour with white paint. The tribute honors nearly 400 South Asians who sailed into Canada in 1914 seeking asylum. Most were turned away due to exclusion laws. And an assault charge has been laid against a 53-year-old man accused of pushing another man down the stairs at Granville SkyTrain station earlier this month. Police say it followed a verbal confrontation between the victim and the suspect, Bradley King. After police released this footage, they say a witness spotted the man downtown and phoned 911. King has been released until his next court appearance. Well, if you're looking for a rapid COVID test in BC, more are on the way, and the government is expanding who can get one. As Janella Hamilton reports, advocates say it's about time.
If you're 18 years or older in BC, you can now pick up a free rapid test kit from a pharmacy. This pharmacist says they can't keep up with the demand.
I think we were actually given by somewhere around 500 test kits, and we are in need of more again.
Ravel says in a matter of days, he has seen a spike in younger people wanting to take home tests.
I think our youth also should be part of this, who can take test kit, because people are going to universities, or right now everything is open, lesser restrictions. So students and everybody is meeting more people. and they want to test themselves.
This student says while she can get rapid tests at her school, everyone her age should be able to, student or not.
So it would be nice if, people like maybe 12 plus or 15 plus started to have access to the test as well. It's just keeping everyone safer.
The province says close to 3 million rapid test kits have been distributed to more than 1,300 pharmacies in BC, a necessary step, says this advocate, especially with COVID-19 mandates easing.
Right now, we're flying blind. So people that have symptoms cannot be tested.
She says COVID-19 case counts are rising in other provinces, as well as Europe and China.
The pandemic is not over. As I was just checking before the interview, and Quebec is going to be offering a fourth dose because their cases are going up, and likely it is the BA2. And same thing in Ontario.
She says the new strain is proving to be even more transmissible than Omicron and would like to see masks mandated once again.
It seems it's a repeat of July 1st of 2021. If you remember, we lifted the mask mandate thinking, just like Alberta, we were going to have the best summer ever. And lo and behold, within a couple of months, end of August, early September, masks came back up. And we were dealing with Delta.
The province says it expects to receive more than 4 million tests from the federal government in the coming weeks. Ravel hopes people of all ages will soon have access. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And for the first time in many weeks, BC is reporting an increase in hospitalizations. 4 more patients since yesterday in hospital. At least 1 more person was also admitted to critical care. 1 more person in Northern Health has died from the virus. After 2 years of virtual events, the Vancouver Pride Parade and Festival is planning to return in person this summer. The Pride Society says the theme of the 44th festival will be Together Again. Festivities are set to begin July 22nd and run through August 1st. And for those weary of returning in person, organizers say virtual programming will also be available. Well, the agreement that will see the federal NDP support the Liberals could also see millions of Canadians saving on the costs of medicine. Essentially, the political alliance could see Canada move toward a universal pharmacare program. But some experts are telling our Mira Baines the process may not move fast enough over the next 3 years before the political deal comes to an end.
Advocates for a national pharmacare program argue that if medically necessary hospital care is free, medically necessary drugs should be too. BC's pharmacare system is already robust, but it could see added benefits.
The main difference that we hopefully would see is an expansion of the formulary so that some of the current drugs that aren't covered could get covered in the future. And I think that would be of benefit to all British Columbians and particularly to BC seniors.
For example, some drugs not covered by pharmacare in this province include the shingles vaccine, which can cost up to $300, the high-dose flu vaccine at almost $75, and some Alzheimer's medications.
These people are on incomes of like $20,000, $23,000 a year. You know, that amount of money is very significant to them.
However, the federal NDP and federal Liberal deal could make more headway in other provinces. Roughly 20% of Canadians have no pharmaceutical coverage.
We know that about 1 in 4 people don't fill prescriptions every year due to cost. And if you think who those people are, well, it's our poorest Canadians, they're people of color, single parents, young people, seniors.
The federal government plans to pass the Canada Pharmacare Act by the end of 2023. Then the National Drug Agency will be given the task of developing a bulk purchasing plan for prescription drugs.
We can get a really, really good start on pharmacare in the next 2 years, and then hopefully expand it to cover everybody as soon as possible after that.
The program will require more spending from a government that already ran record budget deficits during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it could benefit the country in the long run.
And I've studied this extensively in my work, and I can assure you that Canada will save billions of dollars every year. That means hundreds of millions of dollars a year in savings for British Columbia because of those price reductions.
Although the NDP already has a blueprint for universal pharmacare, it's unclear if this can all become a reality before the NDP Liberal deal ends in 2025. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
The Conservancy of Hornby Island is sounding the alarm on shrinking Pacific herring populations. They say the fishery has collapsed. The conservation group is accusing federal authorities of mismanagement, attributing declining herring stocks to decades of overfishing. Last December, Ottawa cut commercial quotas by half, but conservationists say that's not enough. They say more protections are crucial to maintaining the food chain, since herring are a major food source for salmon. Okay, here's something you don't hear very often, or ever, really. There is a goat that loves to ride horses in the Kootenays. Well, one horse in particular. His name is Erit, and he's taken to spending much of his time on the back of a horse named Bouge. Now, they all live on a farm in the Slocan Valley, and the farm owner has been documenting Erit's rides, much to the delight of her social media followers.
Rhett started jumping on Bouge's back. And then it turned into Bouge actually, it really turned into Bouge allowing a Rhett to get on his back. So he'd reposition his body towards a hay bale or towards whatever height object was there. So I'm assuming that Bouge really enjoyed maybe the back massage he was getting or the back scratches he was getting from the goat.
The farm owner says the bond between the animals has grown in the past couple of weeks, and they're spending a lot of time together. One of many unlikely pandemic relationships, perhaps?
I'm heavily invested in this relationship now. Just delightful. We needed that today.
Yeah,
we did. Actually, it was pretty delightful outside right now, too, we have to admit. After a rough start this morning, we had lots of drizzle and then heavier rain showers, and they sort of continued spottily off and on throughout the day. It was mild. Even this morning, as early as 4 a.m., we were already up to about 10 degrees, so we didn't get much higher than that, but still seeing some fairly mild temperatures. So it's still 10 at Vancouver Airport, 12 in Pitt Meadows, and 10 as you're heading out into the Fraser Valley. And we will continue to see those mild temperatures for the next couple of days. We're not going to be seeing such sunshine in the lower mainland, but many areas of the province, though, looking at a gorgeous day ahead for tomorrow. We do have this system sitting just far enough off the coast. It's going to take a couple of days to reach us, but ahead of that, we will see increasing cloud tomorrow. So staying dry and mild, and that will hold over pretty much until the weekend when we see the system's tail sort of sweeping up and over, and that will bring a substantial rainfall to the south coast, and we could even see some snow at those higher elevations, especially those mountain passes. But enjoy things for tomorrow. We're going to see lots of sunshine to start in most areas, warmer, milder temperatures before things do start to cloud over. And then, yes, we will get into some wetter weather late Friday and into the weekend. As you can see, though, up to 10 degrees tomorrow, 12 for Friday. So staying with those milder temperatures, and then just in time for the weekend, we see that system arriving, bringing fairly heavy rain on Saturday and then showers on Sunday.
Okay, I'll try not to think about that and just focus on tomorrow and Friday. Looks good.
Enjoy it.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Weather update brought to you by Alegria by Cirque du Soleil. Opens March 25th at Concord Pacific Place.
The federal Liberal NDP Supply and Confidence Agreement includes a proposal to create a national dental care program for low-income Canadian families. With a $4 billion investment, this would be the largest expansion of Canada's public health care system in decades. Planning, of course, is still in the very early stages. But for more on this, we are joined by the interim CEO of the Canadian Dental Association, Dr. Aaron Burry. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, my pleasure.
So, Dr. Burry, the Canadian Dental Association put out a statement emphasizing how provincial and territorial dental care systems are underfunded. Why should regional plans be prioritized?
Well, essentially what we've been talking about some time now is that we already have a very good system set up in terms of provincial dental programs that are up and running that serve many of the individuals and or the people who need access to dental care. The fundamental issue is these programs are underfunded, they need to be expanded, and they need improvements. And this is an easy way to be able to do that.
Well, and can you talk about those improvements a little bit more? What is it that isn't good enough right now for families with low income?
So essentially, there are a lot of the programs that, and again, they vary by province right across the country. There are different levels of care offered by different provinces. And they're also an area where there hasn't been a lot of investment in these programs for a long time. So they're often serving more people with less money.
So are we talking about, a family that doesn't have access to dental care at the moment? Maybe they have some young children, the young kids have cavities and they can't get those filled. Like, what are the gaps here?
So there's a lot of gaps in the programs across the country, and it does vary by province. Some cover, programs right up to children up to 18, some cut off at age 12, and some involve more comprehensive care than others. So there's quite a range across the country, and provincial governments have typically been strapped in terms of being able to expand this area in healthcare.
So is this going to be a game changer when it comes to helping families?
This certainly has the potential to add a significant investment and specifically dedicated for healthcare spending in dentistry, because not all dentistry currently is funded out of healthcare dollars. So this would be a game changer in terms of adding that additional dollars to help close the gaps that have existed for some time in various provinces across the country.
And just quickly here before we go, there's been a lot of pushback against this already. People saying, why should I have to pay for this? What do you say to those people?
Well, there's about 35% of Canadians that don't have good access to dental care, and many who go and suffer. And in addition, there are many people who wind up in our emergency departments and seeking care elsewhere, which could be relatively inexpensively addressed in dental offices.
Dr. Aaron Burry joins us from the Canadian Dental Association. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's turn now to our search for BC's best small town. Voting today is all about the Southwest. It's a diverse region of coastal communities and mountain enclaves. Voting goes until 10 p.m. tonight, but our municipal affairs reporter Justin McElroy tells us which towns have the edge at this moment.
By the end of the day, what started as a competition between 32 small towns in the South Coast region will be down to just 8. In the Battle of the Sunshine Coast, Sechelt is the larger community, but it's Gibson's that will likely take home the win, as the home of the Beachcombers has a comfortable lead at the moment. Located between Gibson's and the Lower Mainland is Bowen Island, and while it faces a tough matchup against Harrison Hot Springs, it too looks likely to advance up by a fairly sizable amount. British Columbians love coastal communities, but Pemberton has seen huge population growth in recent years and is neck and neck with Gabriolo Island at the moment. Head east inland from Pemberton and you'll find Lillooet, where the Gold Rush town has a comfortable lead over Lower Nicola and looks set to reach the quarterfinals. But with votes open until 10 p.m. tonight, there's still time to determine which small towns move on.
The scale of devastation a cellist plays amid the ruin in the unrecognizable city of Kharkiv. NATO prepares to meet a month since Russia invaded Ukraine. The costs from civilian lives to military losses is coming up. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A cartoonist from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia is getting set to see her work on screen. Kate Beaton is world-renowned for her comic collection, Hark! A Vagrant, and her humorous take on historical figures. Now, Apple TV is adapting her new children's book, The Princess and the Pony. Matthew Moore has spoken to her about the show premiering next month.
Kate Beaton's 2015 book had a large following, and the TV adaptation of Pinecone and Pony is sure to get even more eyes.
To see your drawings up there moving, it's everything that I dreamed of when I was a kid.
Before the pandemic, Beaton says the story was brought to several major studios. Eventually, Apple picked up the show, and the pandemic didn't slow things down. She was able to work from her home in Mabou, doing Zoom calls with animators, writers, and other executives of the show. Going from the solitary action of writing alone to working with a large network was a transition.
And then all of a sudden, I'm in this gigantic crew of people who are multi-talented and can do, I would send in drawings to the animators, this is what I think this expression should look like. And then they would animate it, and I can't do that. And so you're so aware of working with like these different professionals and putting something together that was bigger than all of you. And it was my first time doing something like that. It was so special.
The 8-episode show is about a young girl named Pinecone. With the help of her best friend Pony, they learn about what it means to be a warrior. It was produced by DreamWorks Animation and First Generation Films. Beaton is one of the executive producers of the show. She says seeing her drawings come to life in an animation studio was a rewarding experience. And last week was particularly exciting as the trailer came out for the world to see.
It was finally on TV. They announced it on March 17th. And we turned it on and I was like, oh, it's on the TV. That's insane. And I don't know if you ever get used to it.
Pinecone and Pony premieres April 8th on Apple TV+. Matthew Moore, CBC News, Mabu.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for global protests against the war in Ukraine. Ukraine's military and civilian defense units have put up stiffer than expected resistance and denied Moscow the quick victory it had hoped for. But the Ukrainian leader says the conflict has taken a toll on his country and is asking for global solidarity. The call comes as NATO leaders are set to gather for a meeting in Brussels in a few hours. As leaders of the alliance prepare to meet, a Ukrainian cellist has launched a project to highlight the devastation in his beloved city of Kharkiv. He's performing Bach's Cello Suite No. 5 in C minor. Kharkiv, a thriving city before the Russian invasion, has become nearly unrecognizable since the bombing started. The 30-year-old hopes to raise funds for humanitarian aid and to help rebuild and restore his city's architecture. As the cellist mourns his beloved city, elsewhere in the country, Ukrainian forces are pushing back Russian forces.
Residents of this Kyiv neighborhood clean up after yet another attack by Russia.
It seems like not rocket, because if it's rocket, it's more damage. I don't know. It was many bombs.
Kyiv's mayor assessed the damage.
In our hometown, Russians killed 264 civilians. We listen bombing attack right now. It can be more. From 264 civilians was 4 children. Right now, over 300 people in hospitals, they is injured, and 16 children also injured right now in the hospital. More than 80 buildings is destroyed.
But he says Ukrainian troops are counterattacking Russian forces and have regained some ground near the capital.
From the north, behind the Lutish, and there is a big battle. And from official sources we receive information. Right now the small city Makariv and almost whole airplane already in the control is Ukrainian soldier.
It's now been 1 month since Russia invaded. This advisor to the Ukrainian president says more than 105 Russian aircraft have been destroyed. In their own briefing, Russian military officials shared footage of a missile strike. They say it destroyed a large depot of Ukrainian weapons and military equipment, including some from the West. Moscow again saying our military is not shooting at the civilians until civilians take arms and start shooting at our military. That may be news to people fleeing Ukraine's besieged southern cities. Amidst concerns, humanitarian convoys are being held up and aid workers captured as they try to get desperately needed food and other supplies to those in need. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Belgium for the next 2 days, where he'll be attending the special NATO meeting on the war in Ukraine. Ellen Morrow has more from Brussels.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived in Brussels this morning for 2 days of important diplomacy as Russia's invasion of Ukraine rages on. He spoke at European Parliament, a really somber and unsettling speech. He went beyond the invasion of Ukraine, referencing the pandemic, millions of lives lost, growing authoritarianism, and a growing distrust in facts and institutions. All serious challenges the West was facing even before the invasion of Ukraine began. Trudeau saying that democracy will not continue without what he called deliberate and mindful effort.
Putin's attack on Ukraine is an attack on the values that form the pillars of all democracies. We have a responsibility to make the case to people about why these values matter so much, not just to Ukrainians, but to us all.
Trudeau's speech comes just hours before the eyes of the world will be on Brussels tomorrow. NATO leaders will be here in Brussels, including President Joe Biden, discussing how they can try to deter Vladimir Putin without escalating this conflict into a wider war. We heard from the Secretary General of NATO today as well, Jens Stoltenberg. He said that NATO will increase its troop presence in Eastern Europe. He also said that NATO will send equipment to Ukraine to help defend against biological, chemical, or nuclear weapons attacks. And there are growing fears that Russia could resort to using those types of weapons.
Russia must stop its nuclear saber rattling. This is dangerous and it is irresponsible.
And so tomorrow, NATO leaders face hours of difficult discussions. It is expected that we will see an increase in military and financial aid to Ukraine. There will be lots of unity on display, but also some pressure behind the scenes, including on Canada to hit the NATO target of spending 2% of GDP on defense, a target Canada currently falls short of. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Brussels.
Moderna says early research indicates that a low-dose version of its COVID-19 vaccine works for kids under the age of 6. The drug maker enrolled about 6,900 children in a study, giving them a quarter of a dose given to adults. It found they developed high levels of antibodies, but the lower dose proved less effective against the highly contagious Omicron variant. Moderna says it will seek authorization from regulators in the U.S. and Europe and is expected to file for an approval in Canada this spring. Well, a recent study of healthcare workers in Quebec found many who caught COVID-19 are still suffering the consequences. So-called long COVID is all the more challenging for people who are at higher risk of being exposed to the virus at work. And as Lauren Pelly reports, this strain has an unintended impact on Canada's overstretched healthcare system.
Just breathing deeply is now a challenge for Anne Barreux. She's a physician in Montreal and a long COVID patient. Since falling ill back in December 2020, the 46-year-old has also struggled with heart inflammation and intense fatigue.
If I push just a little,
I'll be in my bed for days, not even being able to think.
Bathe hasn't been able to return to work, leaving her colleagues to care for her patients.
I know how much my colleagues are struggling and overwhelmed. Everyone's exhausted.
A new study out of Quebec found a high prevalence of post-COVID issues among healthcare workers who fell ill during the pandemic's first 3 waves, including memory problems and trouble concentrating. Out of roughly 6,000 survey respondents, 40% of those who didn't require hospitalization reported having health issues after 12 weeks, along with 68% of people who were in hospital.
And these cognitive dysfunctions for professionals working in the healthcare system could be quite important to do their duties.
Long COVID researcher Dr. Angela Chung treats many patients who are struggling with lingering symptoms.
From physicians, from nurses, from allied health workers as well.
She's among those worried about the impact of long COVID on a healthcare system that's already under strain.
I would suggest having coordinated effort across the country, having specialty clinics so that they are looked after, but also so that we can understand it better.
Bathe is working hard to recover, which also means making plenty of time to rest.
But on the ward or at the clinic, this is not something I can do or my colleagues can do when they're, in the heat of the action.
It will take more time before she's back to caring for patients, instead of just being one herself. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
While patients like the one we just saw deal with the after effects of infection elsewhere, Canadians are grappling with a return to the office. Not all employees are on the same page as their employers are, and Jacqueline Hansen reports on a poll from the Angus Reid Institute commissioned by CBC News that found most people now working at home want to stay there, most if not all the time.
In downtown Toronto, a wave of workers are returning to the office.
Actually, it's my first day today.
They're encouraging everybody to come back.
Still, it's nothing like pre-pandemic times when you could get swept up by the current of commuters. And it may never be, since many companies aren't bringing everyone back to the office full time.
I will be in a hybrid role, so a few days a week and the other days back in my slippers and PJ pants.
Leaving the comfort of working from home completely could be a deal breaker for some people. A new survey by the Angus Reid Institute in partnership with CBC News found 1/3 said if they were mandated back to the office full time, they'd consider looking for a new job. And nearly 1/4 said they'd quit immediately.
Even if they don't leave, do you think it's a good thing to have 1 in 5 of your people staying with you for golden handcuffs and hating you?
This researcher says there's no single solution for every workplace.
Start talking to your people. Stop pretending it's one and done here, that there is some magical plan. Ooh, you can implement it and it'll be a miracle.
It's what we would call a candidates market.
This recruiter says in-office jobs are the most difficult to fill right now.
Flexibility is what is really the most important, perhaps more than increase in pay.
At Wave, a financial services firm in Toronto, coming to the office has perks.
Stunning patio with gorgeous views of the city.
Yeah, it's meant to be an environment that's really comfortable, good for working, creative thinking.
Still, hybrid is the new normal here, and no one will be forced to come back.
I think if we did put a mandate into place, we would lose people, and I think we should. I think people have proven that they can be efficient at home, they can get work done, they can be trusted.
Putting the choice in employees' hands to stay or go. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a mission teens' dream come true. How the 17-year-old impressed judges like Lionel Richie and Katy Perry on American Idol.
This net was so full of herring, it almost tipped the boat over, and much of the catch was lost. But for others, success, a combination of good strategy and good luck, netted some of them more than 150 tons of fish. At more than $1,000 a ton, even considering all of the expenses, it's not a bad day's harvest.
It's been a good day for us. We, latched onto a few fish.
But some wonder whether this annual opening is too successful, scooping up so much herring from one single spot. Consider the opinion of this fishing analyst.
We must have a quota for herring which is in line with the capacity of the herring to reproduce itself, and this is not happening. We are mining the herring out of the strait.
It's an assessment federal fisheries scientists flatly reject. They say they carefully track exactly how much herring is out there before setting the quotas, and that today's opening was textbook perfect.
The fish were well spread out and the right quantity in the right area, good weather. You really can't ask for a whole lot more to try and manage a fishery.
Except for one thing. Tonight, as the fish were being counted, Gordon said it appears the boats exceeded their quota by more than 30% before fishing could be halted. Not a threat to herring stocks, he says, but likely ammunition for those who say the herring is being overfished. Ian Hannamansing, CBC News, near Ucluelet, British Columbia.
People of this province
then Gordon Wilson's big moment, his first question to Premier Harcourt on trustworthiness.
Despite your promise, the people of Kamloops have no cancer clinic. Despite your commitment, the Powell River Ferry remains based in Comox. Despite your guarantee, the people of Robson have no ferry. Despite your word that
None of the questions had the piercing arrow quality of those slung at Vanderzam, but no one was expecting blood on the first day.
Which one was that? I don't know. No one uses it.
At least not up in the press gallery, the Dickensian headquarters of the political scribes. A musty rabbit warren almost out of Pickwick papers.
You expect to see somebody sitting there with a, sort of a powdered wig and a quill pen, but in fact, we do have one of those. His name's Jim Hume.
That is not what they're saying.
Here in the heart of the news and views about government, no one is expecting sparks right off the bat.
Well, excitement's not usually the word you utter when you're talking about Mike Harcourt or the NDP government.
However, the dean of the press gallery expects there will be some fun.
I think they're always fun to cover. You got 75 politicians in there. There's got to be more than 50% of them falling on their sword on any given day. It's just a matter of being around to watch them do it.
It can be fun. It hasn't been as exciting since the Vanderzam days, but might pick up a bit.
Well, it's a dream come true for a 17-year-old singer from Mission.
Guys, guess what?
What?
I'm going.
Ishan Sobti just concluded his audition with American Idol, performing before judges Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, and Luke Bryan in Austin, Texas. And he impressed them, so he's on his way to compete on this season. The teenager says he's been watching the show for years.
Don't make me close one more door. I don't want to hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare. Must I imagine you there?
Half a Man by Dean Lewis is the song Sobti sang for the American Idol judges. And this year, it's not just him competing from BC. 19-year-old Kamloops resident Cameron Whitcomb is also going to Hollywood. Ishan Sobti joins us now. First off, congrats and thanks for being on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Anita.
I know your audition hasn't aired on TV right now, so we can't actually see your reaction from when you found out, but how did it all feel? How does it all feel?
It's so surreal because I've been watching the show for so many years and I've kind of pictured myself being on there. And now that it's a reality and all my friends and family are so supportive, it's insane.
Yeah, such an exciting time, I imagine. I'm told that one of the judges paid you quite the compliment. Can you tell me what that's all about?
Yeah, so after I sang, Lionel Richie actually seemed to really like my performance and resonate with it. And he said that I had one of the clearest voices he's heard, which was a huge compliment to me. And he just was really complimenting my vocal skill and stuff like that. And it was insane hearing that from him.
Wow, no kidding. And Sean, can you take us back? How did you start singing and then wind up on American Idol?
So I started singing when I was about 7 years old. My family doesn't really have a musical background at all. So I think it just came from watching TV and YouTube and stuff like that. And that's how I became into music. And then I've been performing ever since then. And a few years back, I was watching American Idol and I saw Lauren Spencer-Smith from Nanaimo, who was on the show a few years ago. And that inspired me to go for it because she's a Canadian on the show. So why can't I be? So I actually auditioned and for the producers, and I made it to the judges.
Okay, so what comes next for you with your American Idol journey? What's the whole process here?
So since I got the golden ticket, I get to go to Hollywood week, and that's like the most intense week of the whole competition. And yeah, I just get to perform in the genre round, which is coming up.
Okay, well, good luck there. And before you go, I do want to ask you one more question. There is another BC team competing on the show. So is there a rivalry here, Battle of British Columbia, or are you two supportive of each other?
Not at all. I'm so supportive of Cameron. He's such a nice, humble guy. He's really cool. I'm excited for him. I'm rooting for him too.
That's awesome. Well, I'll root for you both, but of course, got to give you the nod because we went to the same Abbotsford High School. So
yes, I did.
Good luck, Ishan, a 17-year-old singer from Mission on his way to compete on American Idol. Thank you.
Thank you.
Canada's men's soccer team is on the cusp of making the World Cup for the first time in decades. They play a crucial match tomorrow. How they're preparing, coming up. At 6:40, you're looking at a live shot of the North Shore. Beautiful day out there now. Amy Bell joins us for the full weather forecast coming up, and that's ahead of the weekend. Drier days and a little more sunshine to look forward to for sure.
I've been at it for good 40 years since I was 4 years old. My mom taught me. You grab the stick out of the shore, put a line on it, the hook, and we're fishing. And we have a group fishing from all over. It's pretty cool. It's good to share, you know, share your knowledge. It's so diverse, eh?
I've been fishing since I was a kid. I don't really know what age to put it at, but I was probably a good 6 or 7 years old since I started fishing. It was probably with a fishing rod at first, or it might have been ice fishing. I don't remember, but I certainly love ice fishing. Ice fishing is what I'm passionate about. I really only learned Mi'kmaq culture through Maunay, and I took an Indigenous Studies class in first year. I took their Traditional Ecological Knowledge class. I really love learning that kind of stuff in terms of history and spirituality, and just the different practices I really enjoy. And you can compare almost everything to Inuit and Mi'kmaq culture in terms of hunting and fishing, you know. I came with 4 of my friends, so we had a full car coming up from Sackville. It was a nice drive. A little chilly today, but I'm glad we have the shelter. Ice fishing here. Oh, I got one. Ice fishing is really quick. You never know. I mean, you get one real quick here, I find. Whereas back home, it might take a little while until they start biting. I'm also surprised at how. Oh, geez, you got 2. I'm surprised by how shallow the water is in what we're fishing in and how little line we need. I'm excited to learn other fishing practices that are done down here, the cross-cultural learning and teaching. That's just really important to have that inclusivity, and that sharing of knowledge is just really important for a number of reasons, you know. I made a couple jiggers for my friends yesterday. It's very different than back home. We'll use caribou antlers for ice fishing jiggers rather than like wood but then, the fishing line, the hooks are a lot smaller than what we use back home because our fish are quite a bit bigger than down here. But still, they're just as important, just as tasty, just as yummy. And I can't wait to have a bite.
What's it like watching, some people who've never fished before?
It's actually
the
amazing.
fishy smell.
It's amazing. And just hearing their stories of where they come from too, it's quite... So it's bringing back old traditions, right? They're lost. Sharing your gift, right? And this is one of my gifts.
Canada's men's soccer team is on the verge of going where it hasn't been for nearly 40 years, the World Cup. As Jamie Strachan shows us, it's drawing attention from beyond our borders.
Corner kick, swings it in, near post, headed away, and it's in! It's in! Canada has got in front 2-1!
Since its one and only World Cup nearly 40 years ago, Canada has wandered in the soccer wilderness. A win Thursday in Costa Rica would change all of that.
Alfonso Davies keeps it himself! Goal!
The team has dazzled through World Cup qualifying, going undefeated through 11 matches, punctuated by magical moments like Alfonso Davies' goal last October in Toronto.
I think Fonzie's goal against Panama, I think it got the country to believe that we can do this. And when that belief's there, you stop believing anything can happen.
Before this unprecedented run, little was expected from Canada's men's side. That's changed.
This is easily the most talented Canadian team, ever. I mean, Canada has never had this kind of quality and depth at every position. They've never had players playing at the very top level of European club football.
Beyond hardcore supporters, casual fans are latching on to this team's success. Tickets to home games, including this Sunday in Toronto, sold out in hours.
We talk about John Herman. Think about how smart this man is. Think about how tactically brilliant he was.
Even international media, like ESPN, is suddenly taking notice of this team and its charismatic head coach.
Every man knows what's in front of them. They're in the front row seat. Their hands are on the steering wheel. They can do this.
And getting to Qatar is just the beginning for a team looking to write a new chapter for Canadian men's soccer.
I think it's the team that no one wants to play. I mean, and as far as going Qatar and just being happy to be there, I mean, that's the furthest thing from John Herdman's mind.
Once an unfathomable thought, but not anymore. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, I'm feeling just as excited about that game as I am about the upcoming weather we're getting.
Yes, we'd like to have excitement for both soccer and weather. Today was a bit of a mixed bag, in fact. We started off with heavy rain in a lot of areas, and then even as we were starting to see some sunny breaks earlier this afternoon, we were still dealing with these very intense shower cells. So things settled down, and we are heading into a very nice, calm, and clear evening. And we were at least staying mild throughout the day. In fact, by this morning, like 5 a.m., we were already up to about 10 degrees, and that's sort of where we stayed all day, and we haven't seen much of a cool down yet. The next couple of days will be calm, not ahead of the, it's not the calm ahead of the storm, but it's definitely the calm ahead of some more exciting weather. We will, however, see increasing cloud throughout the day tomorrow, but for the most part, we're seeing dry. We'll start off a little bit sunnier, then we'll end up for most areas, but as you can see, this big system sitting off the coast, it'll hit the north coast first Friday early morning and then into towards Vancouver Island, and then we'll start to see moving further and further inland throughout Friday, pushing that cloud in, and then by the evening, that's when we'll start to see some precipitation, and we'll see that following across much of the province. Unfortunately, as you can see, it packs quite a punch, so we are going to be dealing with this precipitation right through the weekend. But let's focus on tomorrow because it will be lovely. Mild temperatures right across the board and looking dry right across the province. We even see plenty of sunshine up and down Vancouver Island. As I mentioned, though, there will be increasing cloud throughout the day, so the earlier you can get up, the greater your chance of seeing that sunshine once again. Heading out into the Fraser Valley, you'll hit about 14, 15 degrees by the time you get out towards Hope. Even Prince Rupert tomorrow, dealing with a nice mix of sun and cloud, and they're usually left out and dealing with their own showers while the rest of the province basks in sunshine. So it's even across the board tomorrow. Victoria, as I mentioned, a little more increasing cloud. 10 in Cranbrook, 8 in Williams Lake and Prince George. And they'll see the sunshine sticking around a little bit longer as you move further in towards the interior. For the 5-day forecast, timing's not the best, unfortunately. Last weekend of spring break for most kids and parents that took the time off. So tomorrow we'll see dry skies and a high of 10. It will stay dry on Friday until the evening. That's when we'll start to see some showers. The rain really ramps up for Saturday. Sunday tapers to showers. And then, yes, back to school and back to sunshine and mild temperatures to really hammer home spring break is over.
No kidding. Okay, thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Jerry Diaz, the former head of the country's largest private sector union, is now accused of ethics violations. Unifor has laid out the results of its investigation. Thomas Dagla tells us what they found and talks about the man's own revelation.
For almost a decade, it seemed like he was everywhere. Jerry Diaz showing up on TV screens doing interviews, traveling to Washington during NAFTA talks, and joining union members on the picket line. Diaz became the face of Canadian organized labor. Now this.
We know that Unifor members will be upset by what you're learning today. So are we.
Unifor alleges Diaz accepted $50,000 from an unnamed provider of COVID rapid tests, and that he promoted that same firm to employers. Then on January 20th, Diaz gave half the money to a Unifor member who in turn filed an ethics complaint and handed in the $25,000 to the union's secretary-treasurer.
The standard to prove a criminal offense is pretty high. Likely, if a criminal offense were investigated here, it would be either fraud or theft from one's employer.
Unifor didn't call police but hired an external investigator. Weeks later, Diaz abruptly retired, citing health reasons, and wouldn't engage in the investigation.
That was the investigator's findings with what she had in the complaint. We're dealing with it as an isolated incident.
Diaz issued a statement saying he's suffering from a debilitating sciatic nerve issue. My coping mechanism, he writes, has been painkillers, sleeping pills, and alcohol. These factors have impaired my judgment in recent months. Diaz oversaw Unifor as it grew to become Canada's biggest private sector union, with more than 300,000 members.
Once it gets, so big, an event like this might have greater repercussions for many members, many different locals.
Even though Diaz left his job as national president of Unifor, the union says he's still a member, and now the most they can do is remove him. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
The Taliban is breaking a major promise. It will not reopen schools to girls past grade 6. The sudden announcement has caught many off guard. And since today was the start of the school year in Afghanistan, Katie Simpson brings us the reaction from students and calls for action.
In a country aching for a return to normal, the first day of a new school year had so much promise. Women and girls were assured by the Taliban they could pursue an education past 6th grade, with classes resuming for the first time since the fall of Kabul last August. So it came as a shock when these same women and girls were ordered to leave, drawing tears, disbelief, anger. It was like losing a loved one. Everyone was crying, this young woman says. She was sent home, her dreams of becoming a doctor now uncertain. I cannot do anything. My future is ruined, she says. The realization that decades of progress is being wiped out broke the country's top broadcaster. The painful silences giving way to desperate pleas for change.
We call on the de facto authorities to respect all girls' rights to education and to open schools for all students without discrimination or further delay.
There's little hope the Taliban will reverse course.
The main reason they decided this is because
they're misogynists and they don't believe in women's rights.
Canada is now being urged to live up to its claim it has a feminist foreign policy. One option, according to Human Rights Watch, could be for Ottawa to try to galvanize allies and coordinate a united approach to how the world deals with the Taliban.
I want to know what a feminist foreign policy means if it doesn't mean standing up and speaking out for Afghan women and girls at this moment.
At this moment, these young girls will not be allowed to go to high school. The promise of a new school year, now a reminder of their cruel new reality. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
These are therapy dogs in the hands of stressed out students looking for a little comfort ahead of exams. Which university let the dogs out? That's coming up.
They were a highly adorable addition to the scenery in the beach, drawing attention and admirers. But as foxes are spotted spending time in the neighborhood again, the area's local councillor has this message.
We don't want folks approaching the foxes. We don't want folks feeding the foxes. All of that stuff is up here to remind people.
Signage and education are just part of the city's plan to keep the foxes safe.
We've brought in some armor stone to kind of fill in some of those gaps. We've brought in some fencing, and as the foxes come back, our intention is to install privacy screens. Again, it doesn't keep the foxes in or out. They can obviously go wherever they want to go, but it does create a separation and a barrier from all the people who come down here in the summertime.
Over the last 2 years, reports of the foxes being killed by dogs also has the city reminding residents about the importance of using a leash.
There is an area of the beach that during the winter months is an off-leash dog area. And during the time that the kits will be born and will eventually probably be coming out of the den site is at a time when that area becomes an on-leash dog area. So during that transition period, our staff will be there to just remind people.
The city says bylaw officers and other staff will also be on site to ensure people keep a safe distance.
This fox family is very photogenic and people love to come down and take their photos. This is a public park. People are allowed to come down and take pictures. But what we're really hoping is that people can educate themselves and understand the importance of taking photos from a respectful distance and not engaging directly with the wildlife.
A hope shared by those who live in the area.
They're best left alone and they'll hopefully leave you alone.
I really hope if they come back, people will be better.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
So yeah, make sure that is nice and tight in there, right? Like I said, the tool does the job for you by lining everything up.
What's going on here today is a fantastic project with a bunch of community partners coming together to redo a roof here at the Regina Food Bank. We've got the food bank involved, we've got Regina Trades and Skills Center students involved, learning some skills in commercial industrial roofing in a practical setting and a great way for them to learn on the job.
You got your scissors?
Being able to do and use what you learned in class and just being able to see the work done as you're doing it. Being able to be proud of, say, I built that or I helped with that project and stuff. It's pretty rewarding in its own sense. The group we have, everybody gets along with each other, we laugh, we joke, we're laughing and we're learning as we're doing it. So that's a big part of it, I noticed.
So we have very old buildings here at the Regina Food Bank. We put all our money into feeding people, as you might expect. And so we have a leaking roof. And the project today saves us $60,000. That's $60,000 that we can spend on food at a time when, as we all know, food's really expensive.
There wasn't a day where I ended feeling like I didn't do anything or I didn't like it. And it was always pretty rewarding at the end of the days. I find it. It's pretty awesome.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Stream your favorite CBC dramas or comedies 24/7 on demand on the CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
It can be a very rough time for university students. Exam season. Counseling services at SFU has brought in extra hands, or more like paws, to help students cope. These are therapy dogs. Their calm, accommodating demeanor are thought to help students relax, helping them handle the pressure of exams and approach deadlines with renewed energy and mental focus.
Initial thoughts when I saw the dogs, I got super excited. And then it was so nice to see that SFU was trying to contribute to this mental health awareness that we're experiencing a lot, especially during these times. And it just felt kind of nice to see a dog because they're so warm and welcoming. And even if it gets your mind off for like 10 minutes before you go into class, it really makes a difference.
She says it's her first time taking classes on campus in 2 years of the pandemic. They are cute, and today happens to be National Puppy Day, too. Well, that is the end of CBC Vancouver News on this Wednesday evening, but if you didn't get enough of those dogs, we leave you tonight with more therapy pup pics. See you tomorrow.